You're grieving your old life, very normal. And you have to grieve it in order to be able to move on to the next stage. And people will have 2-year-olds, 5-year-olds, and I'll call it out and be like, you're still grieving your old life. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, it's okay. You can be a great parent and you can also miss your old life. Like, two things are not mutually exclusive.
Welcome to the show, Krysteena Wilson, a licensed therapist with specialized training in marriage and family therapy, and the owner of Tree City Wellness, a practice offering a modern approach to specialized couples and relationship therapy. Welcome, Krysteena. I'm so excited to have you on.
Thank you, Laura. Yeah, I'm really excited too. Thanks for inviting me to be on.
Yeah. So maybe to get started, can you just share a little bit more about your story and like when you started Tree City Wellness, everything that inspired you to, yeah, start this boutique group practice?
Yeah, so I've been in the field for 13 years now. I graduated from a grad school in Los Angeles in 2012. I now currently live in Boise, Idaho. I've been here for about 10 years. And the education that I got was in marriage and family therapy. So I had, my early years, I had a desire to kind of work with couples, and I came from a divorced family. And so that's sort of where my inspiration from that came from, helping people have healthier relationships. But in the early years of my career, I worked a lot with kids and youth and teens and things like that and young adults. And then when I moved to Idaho, I started really getting into focusing more on my niche of couples. There were not really many marriage and family therapists here in the state. And so I felt that there was a big need for that. And so I kind of just transitioned and made that the primary of my practice. So I worked for a couple years in an agency locally. And then in 2019, I opened my private practice in October of 2019. So I guess we're almost at 6 years then.
Wow.
Right? Yeah, 6, 7 years, if I can do the math. 6 years, yeah. And then a few months later, the pandemic hit, and then I got pregnant. So a lot happened in a short amount of time, but
Yeah.
my private practice sustained, and I was getting, these really amazing clients. I was really leaning into more trainings and developing more of my expertise and focusing on becoming a mom. And then I kind of I started to sort of narrow my niche a little bit. And I really loved working with new parents who are kind of going through this big transition of parenthood. And a lot of the clients that I continue to work with today are parents who are really trying to like do things differently than the way that they were raised. They usually have a young kid or kids in the home, usually under 5 or 6. They're really focused on respectful parenting, attachment parenting, gentle parenting, things like that. And a little over a year ago, it's been about a year and a half, I started to actually grow my practice. So personally, I wanted more time with my kid and my family. And so I wanted to start to back off a little bit from my one-on-one sessions. And I still do keep a small caseload, but I also have this amazing group of therapists. We're located in downtown Boise, and we all focus on couples and relationships. So we are highly niched. We know what we're good at and we kind of stay in our lane. And I supervise everyone here on attachment style theories and interventions. With couples, we use a lot of emotionally focused therapy, which is developed by Sue Johnson, also based in attachment theory. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, that's kind of our specialty here. And I've just been going along for the ride.
That's amazing. Wow, good for you. That's incredible to be able to grow it, to have such an incredible team. And yeah, I think as a new mom, I know exactly what you mean to just try to step out a little bit, have more time because everything just moves so fast. They grow up so quickly and you just feel like, where did the time go?
I
So
know.
yeah,
Yeah.
very, very exciting for you. You touched a lot on that you specialize on a very specific type of parenting and relationship style therapy. Can you maybe tell us more about attachment styles and specifically what you practice and yeah, really how your approach is so different from others?
Yeah, so attachment science is fascinating to me. And it was very lightly touched on when I was in grad school, but I honestly didn't start diving into it more until my years after. I just kind of started doing my own research. And then all of that was amplified when I became a parent, or even when I was prepping to be a parent, because I'm very like high achiever and I like to be prepared and I wanted to know all the things. And so I really started diving into it then. I I tell people all the time, like, once you understand the foundation of attachment science,
Mm,
everything makes sense. Like everything just starts to make sense. You start to notice this is why I do what I do in relationships. This is why my partner does what they do in relationship. This is why the things trigger me in parenting
mhm.
that trigger me. This is kind of why I grew up. Like it all just is like this puzzle piece that connects together and it just really starts to make sense. Attachment science, as kind of a whole started being developed in the late 90s by John Bowlby, and then in the decade to follow, a researcher named Mary Ainsworth also came on the picture and kind of helped develop these different attachment styles. And those have translated into kind of what we know today as the different attachment styles. There's been some tweaks and there's some nuances depending on what book you read, but essentially there's anxious attachment, there's avoidant attachment, there's secure attachment, and there's disorganized attachment. And so really we all kind of fall in these like four different categories. Which again is, it seems very simple, but it explains just so much about human behavior and how we respond in relationships.
Can you maybe tell us a little bit more for people that haven't really explored the specific attachment styles as much before? They might have heard of it, but they don't really know, okay, what does it mean if if you have a secure attachment style? What does it mean if you have an anxious attachment style, as well as what causes that? I think that that's really interesting from a parent perspective, because obviously we would love for our children to become secure, to develop a secure attachment style, but what actually maybe causes specific attachment styles and what do they look like?
Yeah, so before I dive into this, I want to preface that your attachment style is not a death sentence because what I'm about to share can feel kind of scary if you're hearing it for the first time, but I am a firm believer in, and I have seen through myself and through my work with clients, that your attachment style can change over time. And the goal is to be secure. So when you have a secure attachment style, it essentially means that you are someone who feels mostly worthy of giving and receiving love. You
Mhm.
feel like expressing your needs and knowing what your needs are in relationships is valid and you do that willingly. You have a healthy sense of autonomy and independence within the relationship, but you also know that it's okay to depend on others because we're social creatures and we need other people to survive. So it's really like having this ideal balance, right? And you might get into an argument with your partner and you don't automatically think, oh my gosh, is it over? Like the world is ending, right? You know that arguments and conflict is a normal part of a relationship and you focus on that repair piece. So you
Okay.
get into a conflict, you come back, you talk about it, you apologize, you hug it out, whatever. So it's really just having this like ideal kind of balance and knowing that there are natural ebbs and flows in relationships. But at the end of the day, you believe that you're someone who is worthy of love and you're worthy of, having a safe and secure relationship. So that's what
Mhm.
we all strive for, right? Most of us are not born like that. We don't grow up like that. So if you fall more on the anxious side, you tend to be someone who has a higher need for reassurance and validation. So you might be looking for cues in other people, whether it's your partner or a parent, or even we see this in friendship dynamics where you need to know, okay, do you still like me? Do you still love me? Do you still want me? Do you still want to be
Yeah.
around me? Am I annoying you? Like if you kind of think about that cycle that goes through your head, and you need that reassurance in order to feel safe and secure.
Mhm.
Of course, for people that fall further on the anxious spectrum, you can take that pretty far and it can be something where like you never really feel secure. You're always like
Mhm.
seeking that validation, right? And so that's where it can become problematic because at the end of the day, we can only give that to ourselves. Our partners can't give that to us, right? And so it's kind of about building that more self-assurance and resiliency and autonomy. On the other side, we have the avoidant attacher. In dating, I like to say that these people are the grass is greener folks, where they might be like, they could be a serial monogamous, right? Like they jump from one relationship to another, but they're always kind of like, is there something better out there? Like, I love my partner, but like I just don't know if
Okay.
they're the one for me. Like they're looking for the
Yeah.
perfect one, right? And of course, there's no perfect one that exists. Or they might be the person where in conflict, we see that they walk away, they shut down,
Mhm.
they freeze, they don't know how to respond, they brush things under the rug, they struggle to express their needs clearly, they struggle to even know what they want from a relationship, right? And so there's always just kind of like this hole or this missing piece in the avoidant attacher. When we go to disorganized attachment, the easiest way to talk about that is it's a little mixture of both. And it kind of has this push and pull dynamic where a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times we see people who have disorganized attachment come from years of complex trauma or PTSD or
Mm.
some kind of abuse in their history, things like that. So it's like they want that love and attention so badly, but when they get it, they don't feel worthy. And so they push it away. And so
Mm.
it's this constant like push and pull, right? Or like if I push you away, that's actually a test because I want to see if you love me enough to come back, right? But like
Mm.
you're never actually getting your needs met because you're giving these like mixed signals.
Okay.
So the goal is to get to that secure place. This is not a life sentence. This is not a death sentence. And even if you identify with some of these, doesn't necessarily mean that like that is your attachment style. There are quizzes
Mhm.
and things which we can talk about later that can help you with that. It's really just about developing awareness of like, oh, okay, this is why I do what I do. And what's this underlying need that I'm searching for? So I can try to get that need met and respond from a more secure place rather than from an anxious space or rather than from an avoidant space or rather than from a disorganized space.
Okay. And so what would be you kind of touched on like what causes a disorganized attachment style, and I know you probably want to be a little careful because I think as parents we don't want to mess things up. We're always worried that we're going to mess things up. But to just kind of give like a little bit of a hint, like what causes an anxious as well as an avoidant attachment style in childhood. And maybe also like how early do we actually develop these attachment styles, which would be very interesting as well.
Yeah, so that's probably the most wild part about attachment science is that the way that this theory was developed was actually by studying babies under 18 months old. So a lot of times what, in terms of these studies, like what the babies were exhibiting in terms of their attachment style before they could even remember, right? Before like
Mhm.
we don't usually remember what we're doing when we're 6 months, 9 months, a year, a month, but these attachment styles followed them, tend to follow them throughout the history of their adult life and can kind of predict what their attachment style if not worked on, right? And if not recognized, like
Yeah.
what your attachment style can be in adulthood. And we're going to say correlation here, right? Not causation. So
Hmm.
when we're talking about attachment styles, they tend to be correlated with these different features. So people who have an anxious attachment style often don't have good consistency with when their needs are being met. So if you think about maybe a little baby who has an unpredictability, like, is my mom going to be warm today or is she going to be
Mm.
distant, right, and cold? Or if, there's kind of like this ebb and flow. So you never really know when you're going to get that reassurance. And so you're constantly searching for it, right? It can also come from sometimes parents who maybe teach their children that the world is a dangerous place subconsciously. So they're very scared of letting them explore or engage in healthy, risky play,
Hmm.
obviously within limits. But there's a type of parenting program called the Circle of Security, and it's based off this attachment science. And basically, what it talks about is that the normal trajectory of a child's behaviors, this happens sometimes hundreds of times a day, is this circle, right? So the baby or the kid or the child, whatever, they go out into the world, they explore, whether they're think about a baby who's like learning to crawl, right? They're crawling away
Hmm.
from their mom, they're kind of grabbing different things, maybe they're pulling to stand, they're exploring, but then they fall and they land on their butt and they're like, "Oh my gosh, that was scary." So they look back, make sure mom is still there, and then they come back, get that comfort and reassurance from their home base, who is their parent, and then that gives them the foundation to go back out into the world again. So that's how we create healthy attachment is that the parent lets the child explore but then is right there when they come back. And of course, we can't do this 100% of the time. So again, like
Yeah.
we're not trying to scare parents here or anything, but this is just kind of the basis of the theory, right? And if you think about it, an avoidant attachment, a lot of times when I work with adults in my practice and I ask them about their childhood, I say, who did you go to for comfort when you were sad? Who cheered
Hmm.
you up? Like, what did you do if you had a bad day at school or if if your crush didn't like you or something like that? And they're like, no one. I just dealt with it myself, right? So maybe it was families where there wasn't a ton of emotional support or emotional nurturing and things were brushed under the rug. And so they tend to respond that way, right? And you learn to suppress your needs over time because they were never met when you were a child. So you really don't expect that people are going to meet them. So you either suppress them or you learn to deal with it yourself.
Hmm. So in that case, as a parent, like how do I make sure that it doesn't get brushed under the rug? Because also sometimes it depends on personality, right? Like, does my child come out and just like tell me these things? Or is it my job to say, like, oh, something is weird and actually like talk about it, right? I think that, or at least that's been my experience, that our generation, it was a lot of you don't talk about feelings. It's not really a thing. Like, I never got asked. And so I want to do things better. And I want to know, okay, how do I get that out of my child that they know that they can talk to me about their feelings and I'm here for them? And I would love to help them to regulate their emotions, right? Because as a baby, they scream and you regulate and they slowly learn to regulate their own emotions. But once they get a little bit older, what can you do as a parent to create a little bit more trust and security to kind of
Hmm.
prevent what you were just describing?
Yeah, this is a really great question. And again, something that I want to normalize just from my own perspective that there is no perfect way to do this. And even as a therapist myself, I have this joke that like I'm already saving for my kid's therapy because he's going to be so sick of talking about his emotions that that's going to be traumatizing in itself, right? Like I'm always like, tell me how you're feeling.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily want to do that either. So, in circle of security parenting, there is a phrase for how to be that secure parent, and it comes from you, right? So, a secure parent, a regulated mom, a regulated parent can support a secure, regulated child, right? So, in circle of security parenting, we say always be bigger, stronger, wiser, and kind. And so, if you ever have any questions as a parent, like, okay, what am I supposed to do in this moment? Think about, am I being the bigger person? Am I showing them that I can be strong and I can stay here even amidst big feelings? Am I trying to act wise and am I being kind and compassionate? So, as humans, basically what you were saying, a lot of us didn't have good role models or good education, or we really didn't even have a lot of the research back then to know what do we do with big feelings? What do we do with these
Mhm.
emotions? And so we get scared of them. And I even see this in adult relationships all the time where one partner is more emotionally expressive and the other partner is like, I don't know what to do when they're like this. Like
Mhm.
I shut down or I just want to like fix it and make it better. And so, as a parent, if you're thinking about a child who's tantruming or something, the best thing you can do is just to sit there and try and be the calm presence,
Mhm.
right? And say, you're feeling a lot right now. There's a lot of big feelings going on, right? We're not trying to rush the tantrum. We're not trying to frantically make it end. We're not trying to make them be quiet. We're just saying, I'm okay with your big feelings. And this is normal. This is a normal part of your emotional development is to have big feelings. And even to be a regulated adult doesn't mean that you're not going to feel anything. It
Mhm.
means that you're going to be able to more easily ride the wave of these emotions. So, as a parent,
Yeah.
naming what you see, it sounds like you're really frustrated right now. Like I'm seeing a lot of frustration. Yeah, you're throwing your arms, you're hitting the pillow, you're throwing the toy, whatever it is. Having firm boundaries can also really help too, right? Like it's okay to be angry, but I'm going to take a step back because I don't want you to hurt me right now. So it's okay to set that boundary and show them it's okay to be angry, but you cannot use it to hit people or hurt people, right?
Mhm.
And then saying, it seems like you don't want to hug right now. That's okay. Mom's going to be right here. I'm just going to sit here and when you're ready, I'm here for you for a hug. So it's
I
just
love that.
really trying to be that bigger person in that moment,
Yeah.
which can be so hard as a parent. Like you really have to
Yeah.
practice regulating yourself. I can't tell you how many times I've been sitting on the floor and I'm like, breathe, Krysteena, breathe, because you just want to make it
Yeah.
stop. You want to take them out of their pain. But
Absolutely.
that's part of that energy and that messaging if taken to an extreme. I'm not saying that one time is going to do it, but if taken to an extreme, that energy and that messaging can show your child like no one can handle my big feelings, so I'm just going to have to handle
Mhm.
them myself. So to be that regulated, responsive, secure parent, you have to show them it's okay, I'm here for
Mhm.
you, like we're going to get through this together. I'm here when you're ready for a hug. I'm here if you need space. I'm not going to leave you. We're just going to
Yeah.
sit here until this wave is over.
Wow. Okay. That's really great advice. I love that, which also at the same time is so hard, as you say, right?
It's so hard. Yeah, it's much easier said than done. Yeah.
My goodness, absolutely. So much easier said than done. Especially because when they are feeling big feelings that also triggers big feelings in us, right? And depending on our trauma, our like how we were raised, creates like different reactions that we then have to regulate. I feel like that's something that I've actually noticed a lot in my husband and I. My daughter is 10 months, and how different things that she goes through trigger different almost memories in us, in
Hmm.
like how we were raised, the trauma that we haven't worked on. I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh my goodness, I'm feeling I'm going through this all over again because I didn't address it, and now she's in it, and this is really triggering me." Same for
Hmm.
him, and I'm like, "I think you're reacting because there's something going on that's on a deeper level. This is not." And so it's so interesting and it's so hard, and it also shows you that they're just your greatest mirror too, right? Like, take also the time to really invest in yourself and work on your own things. And maybe this is something that you can talk about too when it comes to like family therapy. Is it sometimes to, tell the parents to kind of revisit their own experience and work on it to then be a better parent? Or like, what does it usually look like in your practice?
So in my practice, we actually don't work with kids because and this is actually part of, I guess, my story and what suddenly got me to where I am today. I spent the first few years of my career working with kids, right? And
Yeah.
so much of the time I would not see them get better. I would see them get worse. And it was so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And I was working with kids with like really severe behavioral issues and things like
Mm,
that. So these were kids that were more severe on the spectrum. But we'd work on something. I'd try to teach them a coping skill. They would go home and they'd go back to the same environment
mm,
where the parents probably didn't have coping skills for these things too.
yeah.
They'd never been taught, they never learned whatever it is. And so I just started to realize over time, I'm like, man, we could be so much more effective in like helping future generations if we just focus on the parents, like
Yeah.
healing their trauma,
Yeah.
finding security in their relationships, being role models. Like you are a role model to your child all the time, all the
Hmm.
time. Like it really, yes, it does matter what you say, but it matters way more what you do.
Mm,
They're watching you
yeah.
constantly. And as you were saying before about how they're a little mirror, I heard someone once, I don't remember who it was, but someone said like kids are like little Buddhas that just run around your living room and like constantly forcing you to look at yourself and be like, oh my gosh, yeah, I need to like fix this thing. So parenting can be really one of the biggest opportunities for growth and healing for yourself if
Hmm.
you let it,
Yeah.
right? I think that you can kind of get trapped in that. And parenting takes a lot of self compassion and a lot of self forgiveness because no one is perfect. But if you can use that as an opportunity to really try to work on yourself and heal your relationship and say, oh, my partner and I, right? If you have a partner, like my partner and I are literally showing our child what it means to love. And
Mm,
are we doing that to the best of our ability? And what
mhm.
message do we want to portray with that, right? What it means to love. So, yeah, we try to work on, with couples in that. And a lot of times, if we are talking about parenting, I see exactly what you mentioned, where this is just a very random example, but maybe like dad is getting frustrated with like a 5 or 6 year old daughter because she's like not focusing in school or not doing her, not learning her letters or whatever. And if we really dive into it, that's the age that they started to notice like their ADHD symptoms and no one understood what it
Mm,
was. And so they were seen as the bad kid in school, right? And that
interesting.
that label followed them throughout high
Yeah.
school or something. So we see in ourselves or we see in our children the parts that we don't like in ourselves. And it comes from a good place. Like we want so badly for our children to not have the experiences that we have, but sometimes it projects out as frustration and anger rather than as compassion of like, hey, I struggled with this too. And now I'm
Yeah.
aware of that and I can help you with that. But it comes out as like, why are you this way? I don't want you to be this way. I want you to have the better qualities of me, not the
Yeah.
bad qualities of me. So it all comes from a good place. It's just a matter of like recognizing that and being aware of that.
Absolutely. It is so, and it's such a transformative time. And really to, yeah, look at yourself. I think that's beautiful that you kind of saw that to focus on the parents and focus on yourself to then make the change for your children, which kind of leads me to, the couples therapy part that you focus on. What are kind of the most like typical struggles you see couples face as they become new parents, and just kind of what are they going through? and it like in terms of it impacting their connection, intimacy, and just overall relationship?
Well, the couples that we tend to attract in our practice is kind of a subset of people. And what we tend to see are dual learning couples, higher achievers, parents that become parents maybe a little bit older in life. So, they kind of have their adulthood settled. And then all of a sudden, this kid comes into the picture and it's like, whoa, what just happened? Like my world got flipped upside down.
Yeah.
And yes, I am speaking from experience as well. I fit all of that demographic as well. But it's really helping them navigate like, how do you stay true to yourself and your own life and your own ambitions?
Hmm.
How do you keep that connection with your partner that may have been really great before you had a kid, right? Maybe there was a really ideal relationship and
Yeah.
this was like thoughtful and planned, but then you throw a kid into the mix and it's like, oh my gosh, we have two people that maybe were high achieving, kind of independent, and now they have to figure out not only how to have a little person depend on them all the time, but how to depend on each other because parenting is not meant to do alone. Many people do. I give them serious credit. It's the hardest thing I think in life to be a single parent, but
Oof. Yeah.
we are not meant to do this alone. And so, really learning to lean on your supports and to be open about your needs and your wants and to try to have compassion that, like, our relationship is going to look different, but we can mold it
Hmm.
into something that's like, us 2.0, right? This is going to be a different path going forward. And there's going to be a section of space that we carve out for our family. And we need to also make sure that we carve out a section for ourselves as well, like
Hmm.
each other. And that takes very intentional time. It takes, again, these open, honest conversations that sometimes people have never had until they come into our office. Like it's just a space to open up things about, like, okay, what are your true wants and needs and desires that you've never really feel safe enough to share,
Hmm.
and then feeling more comfortable doing that. I tell all of my therapists, and I tried to practice this as well, like in my own, couples work, is that we're really trying to help our clients have a new experience when they're in our office because they can come into our office and they can argue or bicker or disagree or whatever. But unless we're showing them that repair piece, right? We have the rupture, which is the argument, and then the repair, which is coming back together, which is very
Hmm.
important in attachment science. If we can help them show them that repair piece in our office and give them
Hmm.
this new experience, they're going to be able to translate that and take that to home.
So, if I hear you right, it's about kind of you take them in a certain direction and let them explore it. And if it leads to a fight, that's okay. But unlike at home, your therapist then guide them to find that repair piece and teach them maybe skills also to always get back to that repair piece. Maybe do you have any examples when it comes to that and just can dive a little bit deeper into that in terms of the rupture and repair, exactly what that means and how do I can you achieve that? Just some like
Yeah.
easy tips that people like new parents can apply.
Yeah. So, this is really where one of our other theories come into play. A lot of our therapists use either full or bits of emotionally focused couples therapy, which again was developed by Sue Johnson. She's a Canadian based therapist. She's passed away in recent years, but she developed this really wonderful theory that is based off of attachment science, but is specifically for couples. And first, we focus on identifying what is their cycle. So in
Mhm.
relationships, we all fall into a cycle where what I do impacts the other person, how they respond impacts me, and we go back and forth. And when couples come into my office, they're stuck in this cycle. So
Mm,
sometimes they're like, I just react and I don't even know why I react this way. I don't do this with anyone else in my life. I just do this with my partner, right? And so it's about
mhm,
breaking down, helping them identify, okay, what do you do when this happens? What is a trigger for you? How do you respond? We're trying to increase the space between the trigger and the response to give them more awareness and more self regulation so that they can respond in a better way. And then we're teaching them, really how to make that safe and secure foundation. Because at the heart of attachment is having the safe and secure foundation. I tell
mhm,
couples all the time, I'm not going to guarantee that you're never going to argue again. That's a normal part of being with someone. Like, you have to disagree. You have to disagree to show your sense of autonomy in the relationship. But I can help you talk about it better. And I can help you come back together if it ends up in a rupture in your relationship. So coming back to apologize, obviously, is, very important, which is very hard for us to do in relationships. We each want to dig our heels in. Having each person own their own accountability. There is
mhm,
no objective truth in relationships. There's no winner to any argument. each person has to own their part and really be honest about that. Like, I see that I hurt you when I said this.
Mm,
That was not my intention, but I acknowledge that it
yeah.
hurt you and I'm very sorry. Right. And then just pause. Like, don't try to justify why you said what you said. Just, I really hurt you and I'm very sorry. Or I'm having a really hard time understanding your perspective. Can you help me understand? Can you explain this better for me?
Mhm.
Because I'm not agreeing, and I don't know if it's because I'm not understanding or if I just don't disagree, right? So approaching conversations with curiosity and thoughtful questioning can really help just kind of expand the conversation and give a safe space to be able to share wants and needs. And co-regulation is actually a really big thing in attachment, whether we're talking about couples or with parenting, where if you're noticing, and I do this as a therapist too, so I try to co-regulate my clients to sort of role model this. So if I notice that, emotions are kind of getting high and people are feeling flooded and they're getting into that fight or flight sense and they're just like, I can see them spiraling or their voice is getting louder, their
Mhm.
tone, like I will lean in, I will get quieter, and I will really try to just slow them down. Like, this is really painful for you to talk about this. I can see how much this impacts you, right? Can you tell us more about this? Right. And you just like dive into the moment, which feels very funny when you're first doing it. And couples look at me sometimes like, what are you talking about? What do you want me to do? But I swear it works. So you can use it's that role modeling piece again where you can use your tone, your body language, even just putting a hand on your partner. Like, okay, try this next time. If you get into an argument with your partner, try holding their hand and then continuing the argument.
Yeah, you can't.
It's really hard. It's really hard, right? Because you're focusing on that connection piece. As long as you can stay connected, like a lot of these other things just start to get quieter.
That's such good advice to just grab their hand, right? Because it changes everything.
It does, yeah, or
It
look them
really
in the
does.
eye, make eye contact. So
Yeah,
hard for people to do, so hard.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So maybe just one kind of like, do you just have one tip or just practical advice that you can give new parents to sort of find their like new normal?
I think the best thing that you can do as a new parent is to really focus on yourself. Yeah. Like from a deep and meaningful way, right?
Mhm,
Not, I know people are like, oh, but it's so selfish to focus on myself. Like, well, make this intentional. What actually brings you joy? What actually makes
mhm,
you heal? Right? We're not talking about like, oh, I feel productive because I went to the grocery store today, but like, what is healing for you? What is nourishing for you? And sometimes, like for me, for a long time, it was getting up a half hour before my kid did, even though I don't really like mornings, but it was getting up a half hour before my kid did and like having a hot cup of coffee. Like, I swear it made the world of difference for the rest of the day. But
It's
it's because
so
it was
funny.
something that I chose and that was intentional. And it was like this quiet time where the house was quiet, no one was awake. I was able to drink my coffee hot, like all these things that you take advantage of, right? Before you become a parent.
Yeah.
So I think really focusing on yourself because again, a well-regulated parent and
Mhm.
a secure parent is going to produce a well-regulated, secure child.
Love that, and it's so funny because I think that people don't understand that like, until their parents is like, "You can drink a hot cup of coffee?"
I know. Without being interrupted. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's wild. Yeah.
That's so good, that's so good. Just to kind of, yeah, close this up, is there, like, one thing that you would say if you could change one thing about how society supports new parents, like, what would that be?
One thing is gonna be really hard.
Let's just
We are in America, I'm talking about in America, we are not very supportive to new parents in general.
Mhm,
I think that there is a tendency to rush new parenting. And if I were to really sum it up into one thing, I think it would be do whatever we can do to slow that time down, to like give it the space that it deserves, right? Whether that's just allowing rest for new parents, more community supports, greater maternity and parental leave, any parental leave. Like there's such a rush to just get back to what you're doing, right? Go, 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 go. And like this is such a sacred time that some people only get once in their lifetime, right? And I think, as you were saying in the very beginning, like it goes so fast. It really does go so
yeah.
fast. And you're quite literally transforming into a new person. And you just need the space to be able to do that well.
Yeah.
And I think that if we were to find some ways societally to like give more supports to new parents so that they could slow that time down and not feel rushed and not feel like we have to have this perfect schedule and all of these things,
Mhm.
like I just think we'd have a lot better parents and a lot better relationships.
Yeah. It is very hard. I'm German, and in Germany you get a year, and it's really there's no like, no matter what industry you're in, you have a whole year off.
Yeah.
And it makes such a big difference. It really does. Just culturally, you can see the different relationships between mom and kids, and parents on top of that get some time off, and it's just yeah, it's really beautiful because it's hard, and I think that's also doesn't get talked about enough, that what you were kind of touching on just now, you're undergoing a massive transformation becoming a parent. It's not just about you trying to raise this little human, it's also about, like, accepting your new self and becoming your new self, and what does that look like, and mourning your old self, right? And
Mhm.
that's just the whole it's such a massive transformation that on top of it, you throw everything else that comes with becoming a new parent, that it's just, yeah, very it can be very overwhelming, absolutely, so I
Yeah,
love that advice to
it's
just slow down.
hugely overwhelming. And I
Yeah.
think the grieving point that you brought up is really important too. Like one of the reasons that I love working with couples with younger kids specifically and newer parents is because I think until you name that, people are afraid to acknowledge it. Like they feel like it's wrong, right? You're grieving your old life.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
very normal, and you have to grieve it in order to be able to move on to the next stage, and people will have two-year-olds, three-year-olds, four-year-olds, five-year-olds, and I'll call it out and be like, "You're still grieving your old life." They're like, "Yeah, like,
Yeah.
being a parent is really hard, and I miss my free days." I'm like, "That's okay. You can be a great parent, and you can also miss your old life." Like,
Yeah.
the 2 things are not mutually exclusive. So,
But yeah, it's easy to feel guilty, right? It's like
so
the
easy,
mom
yeah. Because at
and
the
just feel
same
like, "But
time,
I
it's
should be so
wonderful and
happy."
joyful,
Yeah.
and, like, this child brings you so much that you never even thought was possible, but it's
Mhm.
okay to have two things exist.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Where can people find you? Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about how do people from Idaho how find you, and then do you have any resources from anyone trying to dive more into what you were saying that's maybe outside of the state?
Yeah, so as therapists, we are licensed in Idaho and unfortunately can only work with people in Idaho, but we can do in person if you're near downtown Boise or virtual throughout anywhere in the state. Which Idaho is quite a big state. If you are interested in more education on relationships, I have a pretty active blog on my website where I drop little tips for couples and different phases of parenting and things like that, or just different, issues that couples go through with like the longevity of their relationship. My website is treecitywellnessid.com. So www.treecitywellnessid, like Idaho.com. And I have an Instagram with a similar name at Tree City Wellness Idaho. You can find me on Instagram where I drop tips on relationships, education, things like that. Also, Laura, I think if you're cool with it, I can include the
Yeah,
link to we have a free attachment styles quiz. So it's a quick little quiz that you can take to kind of get an idea of what your attachment style is. And then there's a mini workbook that's included as well. So you can kind of try to find out the underlying reasons for how you developed your attachment style and kind of get you started on that journey. So I'm
I
happy
love
to share
that.
that too here.
Yes, please. Absolutely. That would be such a great resource. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. This was awesome.